They laughed when she asked the price. They whispered when she touched the fabric. They judged her the moment she walked in. What they didn't know was that she could afford everything they owned. The boutique sat on the corner of a wealthy shopping district. Glass walls, soft lighting, mannequins dressed in clothes worth more than most people's monthly rent. It was the kind of place where people didn't walk in casually. They arrived confident, polished, recognized. That's why no one noticed her at first. She stood outside for a moment, adjusting the worn strap of her bag. Her coat was simple, her shoes scuffed from years of use. Nothing about her announced wealth or importance. She took a breath and stepped inside. The bell chimed softly as the door opened. 3 sales associates stood behind the counter. They glanced up, then glanced away. Not hostile, just uninterested. One of them whispered something to another. A smile followed. Not kind. The woman walked slowly between the racks, fingers brushing against silk and cashmere. She examined stitching, fabric weight, craftsmanship. She knew quality, but no one asked if she needed help. 10 minutes passed. Still nothing. Finally, she picked up a dress. Simple, elegant, dark blue. She turned to the nearest associate. "Excuse me," she said softly. "How much is this?" The associate looked at the tag, then looked at her shoes, then smiled. "Are you sure you want to know?" the associate asked. The other employees laughed quietly. "It's quite expensive," she added. "We don't do discounts." The woman nodded. "I understand," she said calmly. The associate placed the dress back on the rack, harder than necessary. "This boutique caters to a certain clientele," she said. "Maybe you'd be more comfortable somewhere else." The message was clear. You don't belong here. The woman didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. She simply kept browsing. That annoyed them more. One associate followed her closely, pretending to reorganize racks. Another whispered, loudly enough to be heard. "Some people just like to pretend." The woman paused, looked at a mirror, not to admire herself, but to steady herself. She had experienced this before, many times. What they didn't know was this. She hadn't always dressed this way. Years ago, she owned nothing, not even time. She had built her life quietly, methodically, without needing approval. She learned early that wealth doesn't announce itself. It observes and waits. The manager emerged from the back. Sharp suit, cold smile. "Is there a problem?" he asked. The associate gestured subtly toward the woman. The manager approached. "Ma'am," he said, voice polite but dismissive, "this store specializes in high-end fashion. If you're just browsing, we ask that you don't disturb the merchandise." The woman met his eyes. "I intend to purchase," she said. The manager smiled wider. "Of course," he replied. "Perhaps start with something simpler." Laughter. Not loud, but cutting. The woman looked around. At the racks, the mirrors, the people who had decided her worth in seconds. Then she reached in her bag, pulled out her phone. "Could you tell me," she asked calmly, "who owns this boutique?" The manager raised an eyebrow. "Our parent company," he replied. "Why?" She nodded and made a call. The room filled with an uncomfortable quiet. She spoke softly into the phone. "Yes," she said. "I'd like to finalize the acquisition." The manager laughed, then stopped, because her tone hadn't changed. Not joking, not bluffing. The phone call ended. She placed the phone back in her bag and looked at him. "I'll take everything," she said. The manager opened his mouth. Nothing came out. One associate checked her phone discreetly. Her face drained of color. The boutique wasn't just owned by a company. It was for sale, and the woman standing in front of them had just bought it. The manager's posture changed instantly. "Ma'am," he said quickly, "there's been a misunderstanding." The woman smiled. The first real smile since she walked in. "No," she said. "There hasn't." She turned to the associates. "You treated me the way you believed I deserved," she said calmly. "And now, you'll live with it." She dismissed the manager. On the spot, the associates stood frozen. "I value respect," she continued. "Not appearances." She hired new staff. People who understood service wasn't selective. It was human. This story isn't about money. It's about judgment. Because the most expensive mistake people make is assuming they know someone's worth by how they look. Never mock silence. Never underestimate simplicity. Because sometimes the quietest person in the room, owns everything you stand on.